Okay, welcome back. Todd from Toxic Garage Customs here. Glad that you could join me. So in this final episode of the cab to chassis mount on the International, you'll see that we start off by doing a little bit more work to the subframe, pop it all back together, and then we go through the stages of finishing it. It ends up in nice, shiny, satin black paint by the end of it, and we've got it done. So enjoy. Been about a week, maybe a bit less, back into this. So I didn't bother filming this, but just went through and wire wheeled up the chassis in parts that are going to have the subframe on it. I just used a wire brush and my die grinder and have gone through, haven't finished it, I got interrupted, so I did what I did. So done where the subframe's got to mount there, done a bit of the cross member over to here. I'm just using rattle can black, that's okay. And if it was bare metal, I'd already put red primer under it. So the cross member that I cut down, still haven't welded the back of it. I know it might seem a little bit to and fro, but I'm trying to do the parts I can while I can get access. So that's where I cut the top of the cross member off, welded it and so on. So I've done it through here. It's all a bit dirty and dusty again because I've been working in there. Again, I'm not building a show car here, so I'm just trying to make it neat, presentable and protected a bit. There's a bit of pitting around here, but it's structurally fine. Same here. And so yeah, I've painted that up. Then what I've also just done is where the outrigger, so where these parts on my subframe are going to mount, which is at the back here, I've located the cab mount under here. It's crawling under here. So the cab mount there, that's where one side's going to mount. So this part here is the part that I had to do the notch on the frame for. So it comes in here. Then I've got the same over there. I've got to take this broken bolt out. But what I've done, I've run a tap through all of these. So as it turns out, I think there must be two rubber mounts or something that are supposed to mount here originally. I'm not really sure how it works, but what there is within this cab brace, there's 6 captured nuts or threads, whatever they are. So captured nuts also. And so it gives me ample points to mount to. I'm not sure if I'll use all 6 holes because it seems like overkill, but you know what, can't hurt. So what I've done, I've just got a piece of cardboard and made a template of where these holes are. So all high tensile bolts that I'll be using here, these ones are longer than what I'll be using, but they'll be high tensile. And so what I've done is just made up this template of where those 6 holes are. And I've also just put some marks on here as well, just to show me, because what I intend to do is put the subframe back in. I've got to position it so I can work out where to cut this hole, because that was where I had to repair. So I've got to cut the hole in there. So the easiest way to do that, sit the subframe in, scribe a hole through the rubber mount point, and do that, and that way it'll be in the right place. And so I'll set the subframe back on the chassis, back on the rubber mounts, and I will sit the cab on the chassis, on the subframe, exactly where it needs to be. Then I can line these marks up with the outriggers to work out where the first hole needs to be, and then I can just use my template to sit there, mark it out, and away I go. So I'll be drilling 12 holes, 6 for each side. So this subframe, so this will position wherever it goes, somewhere like that. Looks probably about something like that, but I'll work it out from those Sharpie marks. So the Sharpie marks I'll line up with the subframe, get the first one in the right place, set this in the right place, and then where it mounts to the cab, which is this side. This is the top. Then I'll just have holes about that size there. I'll just have holes about that size there, so 12 or 13 mil. And then on the lower side, I will put larger holes, similar to this type of thing, probably a bit smaller than that. So that'll be the effect that I'll have. Smaller hole for the cab, larger hole to get a socket and a bolt through. So on this side, again, holes will be marked in the same place, but then I'll put bigger holes with a hole saw. Probably need to do the top 4 and then the bottom 2 there. I'll probably just be able to get to from in here anyway, so that should be okay. I've got plenty of room here. This is 75 mil. The bolts will probably only end up being maybe 25 mil, so I'll be able to get them in there. In fact, I could possibly do that with a few, but I'll drill holes here. It'll just make it easier, less mucking around. So this side, that side, able to get the subframe in place. As I've shown before, this is where the bolts will come through, up through the cab floor and bolt on. This is where my rubber mounts are. So this particular hole just here is the one that is going to sit above that blank point there. And then once I've got the rubber mount in. So we're really making some progress now. Now that I've got that subframe done, I'm going to pop it back onto the chassis, slide the cab forward so that I can mark out where to put the final mounting holes. And then I'll take the cab back off, take the subframe back off, do some further work. So back at it. Which is right there. So that bolt there is the original cab mounting point. And if we jump under here, that's the bolt just there coming through the floor, and a bit hard to film, but the cab is sitting on the cross member, really just where the holes are, where the bolts are. That's the only place it needs to sit, and that's a better angle of, probably not a better angle. So you can see the clearance there between the top of it. It's probably 30 mil there. See the bolts over there coming through. And again, the bracing where it all sits. I forgot to take a broken bolt out from the cab, so it's actually sitting a little bit higher at the moment, but this is the outrigger, is the way I'm calling it. So that's the outrigger there. I don't know if you can see this. There's actually a bolt that I forgot to take out. It's here somewhere. I can't really see the camera, but just in there's a bolt I've got to take. It will sit down flat, the upper side sits flat. And then over here, that's where that little notched section was. Now, if it wasn't for that bolt, that would be sitting nicely down into that, which again, it does on the other side. So that's all pretty good. Oh. Have a look from the other side. Happy with the height. I think it looks good. This side actually, I think, is sitting a bit better. You can see a gap between the floor brace and the outrigger. That's only because the bolt on the other side is holding it up. If I push the other side up, it actually sits really nice and flatly here. And you can see that relief just there in the subframe. It actually ends up sitting nicely in there. I'll show you that once I've got that sorted. I've got the bolts dropped in on this side at the back as well, same as I showed you. Now all those pen marks on that cab brace, that's where the bolt holes are. But I need to transfer those marks onto the outrigger below so that I can take the cab off, and then I can drill all the holes through to be able to put bolts in. Decided I'm only going to use 4 bolts there. Focus. I'm only going to use 4 bolts rather than the 6. I think it must just be the way the rubber mounts are mounted before this. It's overkill putting 6 bolts there. 4 high tensile bolts through that will do just fine. And I was about to show you something at the back here, and I can't remember what it was. Oh, that's right, yeah, the just here, that mount, the rear mount, is not sitting properly, and that's because I haven't drilled the hole yet. That was where I did a rust repair. So just here I need to drill whatever it is, a 40 or 50 mil hole, whatever it is, to drop the bush down properly. So I've just got it sitting there with a bolt in it at the moment, so that I can mark the spot, so I can drill the hole in exactly the right spot. So you can see the back of the cab here, I can fit my fingers between there. Down the side here, earlier on, a couple of weeks back, I cut this plate loose so I could move it. It will clear nicely. I'll just sort of bend it, hammer and dolly it, shape it, whatever, so that it doesn't scrape on the chassis, so it doesn't rattle or anything like that. But overall, it has come together perfectly. So you can see that's that subframe sitting underneath the original cab mount there. Same on the other side, and from this side, that's that rear cross member. All comes well. I'll probably put some sort of gusset triangular brace from the main side rail over here just to strengthen it up. Not really convinced it'll need it, but just in that free space just there, from there to there, I'll just put a triangular gusset like I did back here, just with some angle, and she should be nice. Happy with the way it's sitting. It's good, it's going along well. Progress is progress. Plenty of clearance everywhere. Don't want scraping, rattles and stuff. Need to be able to be removed, serviceable, and all that sort of gear. And I'm convinced that's what we are. Nice. Got the cab back. While it was forward, I took the opportunity to run some weld along the back of that and grind it up and all the rest of it. So what I've done here, showed you while I was underneath that I put some marks of where the bolts are that are the cab mounting points, which again is in that there. So those lines across there correspond on each side with the lines there, and all I've done, transferred them from the front of the brace to the top, just using a square. Just line them up, transferred them back, pretty simple. And what I had done previously was I made this template up. That was just the dirty finger method. Held a piece of cardboard there that was 50 mil wide, same as the brace. Held it on those, underneath here, on those braces, where the holes are. Smeared my fingers, got some holes there. Then I used a hole punch, take them out. And then after I've transferred these marks from the front to the top, I've put the template on. Holes don't line up perfectly, but I remember this hole here was actually good. Some of these, it was a bit hard to get perfect, but these holes are at the right spacings. And as long as I marked all 6, because I knew that if I could get the majority of them looking right, then I should be able to line them up. I'll make these holes slightly bigger than what they need to be, and that will give me a mil or two of movement sideways one way or the other, which means that I should be able to get the bolts into the holes without any drama. So what I'm going to do, go through, drill these, just because this is a level platform, I can do it here easily enough. And then I'll take the bolts out again, take the whole subframe off. I now know that I can put triangular gussets across here, the same as I did at the back, but I'll do it through here on the same plane, because I know that it's not going to interfere with anything on the floor. So yeah, I'll drill these holes, then I can flip it upside down and I can put the larger holes underneath, so I can actually get a bolt up from underneath. And as I said, I won't do all 6. Not sure that they're real easy to use, this outer hole, so I might use, say, these 2 here and maybe these 2 here. I think that should be fine. That's all. That's should be absolutely fine. I think 4 bolts in there. Don't think I used the 2 outer ones, is what I'm saying. And we'll go from there. But this subframe worked perfectly. I have absolutely no issues with it whatsoever. I don't have to modify anything, which is surprising because that doesn't normally work quite that way for me. Normally works pretty well, but normally I've got to adjust something. But touch wood, it's looking pretty good. Okay. So even though I'm not intending to use all 6 holes, I'm going to drill all 6 holes anyway. So I've done pilot holes, did the same on the other side. I'll zoom over and show you that in a little while. Just going to use a step drill now and enlarge the holes. So I just used a 3mm bit in the first place. I center punched it and then drilled a 3mm hole just so I got my spot right. Just using the step bit, and I'm just going to go through and do probably about a 13mm hole, I guess, 1/2 inch. So the camera fell while I was doing that, but that's okay. I think you got the idea. Got those holes drilled there. Got the template over there. I've done the pilot holes. Just going to do the same there. And then, as I said, I'll slip the subframe off and do the larger holes from underneath. Drilled a pilot hole for where that will eventually mount, because plated that for the rust repair, so I just got to re-drill that and it'll be pretty straightforward. And I've flipped the subframe over and I ended up drilling all the holes, so the end 2 I don't need to drill because I can actually get bolts in there pretty readily. So I've just used my step drill and made holes. So this is the underside, and you may be able to see the holes there on the other side. The idea is these bolts will go through from underneath, come up into the frame, into the body, and the holes are big enough to be able to fit that in there, and have a socket, so be able to put that in there. So I'll be working upside down, just push that up like that through the hole, and away we go. Then that will bolt this to that. Same on the other side. Again, didn't make it complicated. Transferred the holes, transferred the points, used the same template, lined it up with the same marks, transferred the marks around, and then just put this in place where it's meant to go. Put this in place to do the holes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We can do those ones. That hole to go. A couple of gussets, I believe, other than a coat of paint and making it look fancy. I'm ready to bolt cab for the chassis, and then I can move along to stuff like brake booster, master cylinder, pedals, all that sort of stuff. The advantage of using Holden chassis, Holden transmission, all that sort of stuff is I just connect up to the steering shaft that is there. I can use the pedal assembly. Oh no, this is a column shift auto, so I'll have to make some brackets and so on to mount the linkages to the firewall or wherever it mounts. I don't really know where it mounts. but it'll be column shift auto. I did that for economy, but also simplicity. So I've got the linkages and everything to go on to, where it goes onto this, yep, onto here. Won't make it harder than it needs to be. She's a thing of beauty. Subframe's finished. Put some additional braces in it at the front here. These ones here, just off the outriggers. Given it a coat of satin black paint after giving it a sand and a bit of red primer. It's not a show paint job, but it's a subframe. That grunting noise in the background is this thing. This here, it's a high performance racing dog. There, got that all done. Got the bushers in place, so this little bit of welding on there. Got that sorted. Just a quick coat. There's parts I haven't painted yet. I'll come back and do that. I intend to strip this thing completely back to its bare bones and give it a coat of paint, but at the moment I'm just putting paint on it just to stop it from rusting after I've done work. Trying to preserve it as best I can. So once that paint dries, I don't know, it's dry about 30 seconds after you paint it, isn't it? That's the plan. I'm going to pop this back on. Put it on there. Put all the hardware in that I've got. So I've got all new bolts, high tensile bolts and things sorted for it. So these, everything's going to have washers and spring washers. And then for those 12 holes on the outriggers, and I've got all hardware sorted, bolted all on, and then I can move along to steering, brake booster, shifter, all that sort of stuff. And I can move the cab forward. I'll sort this rust out, put a cab corner on it down here. It's neither here nor there, I can still get to it at any time. That's one of the rust repairs I've got to do. But now that I've got the subframe done, put that in place, move the cab forward, start getting all the mechanical stuff sorted out as far as making it a driver and a stopper. That'll be the next stage, I guess. Got the subframe all bolted in place. Nice new high tensile hardware. Coat of paint. All ready to go. I'll slide the cab forward, sit it on, drop the bolts in, and she'll be held in place. When I slide the cab on, I'll scratch all the black paint. You'll never see it again until I pull it off again. I have also taken the opportunity to just go through and take off any ancillary items, bits that aren't needed, off the front of the cab here. I've left the dipper switch there actually because I might end up using it, but took off the throttle pedal, throttle linkage and all that sort of stuff. Gave it a bit of a sand up on the bottom just below that seam. I will probably go through and paint it underneath eventually. The firewall, I normally like my firewalls to be all nice and neat and clean. This one I may just leave with the patina because quite frankly it doesn't look too bad, so we'll see. But shouldn't be too hard to paint if I do decide to do that. And because I wanted to make the thing go faster, I cleaned the glass because that's all really important. Well, I hope you enjoyed those 3 videos on mounting the International cab to the HJ Holden chassis. What that allowed me to do was to move on to the next stages of steering column, pedal, booster, mounting the front panels and the radiator support. So all of that is, some of it is before these videos and some of it is after because they're a bit out of sync. So my apologies for that, but you'll get the whole picture. So thanks for watching. Please like, comment, share and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one. I don't even know what the next one is, whether I've made it or whether it's still to be made. So it'll be as big a surprise to you as it is to me. See you then.